Hi, everybody. This is Thad with Kitchen and Bath Global Partners and Cab Software. Welcome to the Kitchen and Bath Adventure channel. The first thing I did want to mention, we had John Morgan scheduled this week to be joining us as a special guest, but John let me know yesterday that he had some things to attend to that were urgent. So he apologized that he wasn't going to be able to make it today, but he will be joining us on one of the future podcasts. I know that's probably like, oh gosh, John Morgan's not going to be there. I don't know how many times I've already heard from people like, I think I'm going to watch it this time. He's on there. So that's going to give me obviously a lot of material to work with my good friend John in the future. We've known each other for probably 30 years now, and we have a lot of fun together. He's a great guy, and I know a lot of you guys folks know him. So that being said, we do have our amazing Mary Omohandro, and I got the name. I practiced it. Yeah, we worked together, and it's about time that I learned her last name. Will be joining us. She will be our key expert in the area of training today, with a good, 24-hour notice. No, Mary's very, very skilled in our area and has a very big knowledge base too. So, with that being said, Mary, I'll let you go ahead and say hi to our audience that seems to have grown over the million mark. So that's awesome.
Well, thanks for that introduction. I'm really glad to be here. I know I'm certainly no John Morgan, but I'll do my best to keep up with you.
Cool. Well, we got a great subject today. This is like one of the biggest things I think that are people are looking for in the kitchen and bath industry. I'm currently working with a number of dealers that are out there that are going through the process of revamping their training system. And by that, I mean the program, in the past, I think most of the kitchen and bath dealers will agree that it's been pretty spotty for the most part. And I understand there's a lack of resources, there's a lack of time that's out there to be able to continue to educate the people that you have there, but then also the onboarding process for your new folks that are joining your team. So we wanted to try to get some information out there to hopefully help spark some thoughts about what you might want to do moving forward as far as putting something together for your own organization that will help get everybody up to speed. One of I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive into the PowerPoint side of it. I did want to say, like, I really appreciate participation. This is an open mic per se, but I know you're just sending in questions. But we love to hear from you. We really do, even if it's just to say hi, just say no. We get a number of people to do it, but we'd really like some participation today. That's what makes this all worthwhile and a lot of fun. So you see, we're talking about great companies provide great training, and you've probably seen a lot of articles out there recently that are talking about the backbone of organizations that are able to bring their people up to speed in every aspect of the business so that they are all well prepared and they have the skill sets. I know in the past we've already seen the sink and or swim training program, which is just kind of putting somebody in there with a computer and saying, "Hey, go out and sell. Here's the product. Here's the catalog." That really is a detriment to their success, and we want to make sure that everybody, all the owners and organizations, are being able to provide some really solid training to help their success. So, the first thing we want to talk about is defining your processes. So many dealers out there and designers that work within even the same store. You may have 4 or 5 designers there. And when you ask about the process that he used with working with customers from start to finish, quoting, contract, job management, they all seem to have a different process and their own way of doing things, which I understand that's the way they've been doing it for a long time. But that also means that there's going to be a lot of inconsistencies within inside the company. And so I'm always encouraging people to make sure that the first thing you want to do is define your processes. Like lay out what each process in your company is. List them to about, see about 6 or 7 of those and create a process map. Everything that you do within your organization is a process. And the better you can define it and train to it, the more consistency that you're going to have with the customer experience and also great gains on the efficiency side. Because when you're doing it consistently, you're going to allow yourself to be able to set up metrics to it and start measuring how well you're doing in each category. The next one on there is the subsets of each one of those, and we'll see those listed out. And during this process, you'll be able to start looking at each one of these steps and understand whether it's actually working well or whether it's something that needs to be addressed and improved. And that can be the team looking at all these and then deciding better ways to be able to whatever part of that process is to be developed. And again, that's going to kind of standardize the process. So that would be said, I can get off my soapbox a little bit, and I will let Mary talk a little bit. She's worked very closely with me and the rest of the team in helping develop the training programs, not only for us, but for teams outside. So, Mary, here's your 15 minutes. No, actually, we'll give you 35.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think everything that you just said is key and really important, and something else to think about along those lines is something that we always talk about is the culture. So having your training processes really well defined, the steps and then the sub steps as well, and having them working across the board is going to set up a really great culture among all of your employees, knowing that they all are working with the same process and the same tools. It also really gives you a really good look to outside people that are maybe considering to come work for you. So a really good employee is going to want to come into a really good company that has an amazing training program that's going to help them to get up and running quickly and be able to do a really good job, especially in this industry, because, sales. Just leave it at that. Sales, it's important. And it's good to have a good process to help you get to the point where you want to be in your sales.
Right. And that's an excellent point. There's been a lot of discussion about talent acquisition and acquiring new talent that comes to your company and what's going to make the decision for them to come join you. And one of the first questions that may come up is like, what does your onboarding process look like? And so it'll say, well, we're going to make sure you get trained, blah, blah, blah. But how much nicer would it be if you have a 90-day onboarding process that they can look at and say, wow, now it can be tailored to them, but they see that you've already put the time and effort into showing them every step of the way so that they're going to get all the informational training they need, all the tools that they need to be successful at that organization. Right. And honestly, it's just common sense. You've got, I love what Santiago said yesterday, who is one of our traction trainers. He said, you go through the process with them and you train, and they don't completely understand the process from start to finish, you're not done training yet. And then I just thought of that. I was like, yeah, you're not done. How do you leave when even 80% of the training is done and they don't get the last part? That's going to cause all kinds of issues. So right. I think what it does is it brings a lot of focus to the company, because once you get those processes in place and you can start measuring them and looking at them and training to them and starting to put KPIs to those things, because guess what? Training is going to have a huge impact on your KPIs. If you don't think that they don't affect gross margin per person, you may be in another world. Margin erosion, another one. I mean, how many people come onboarding? And I think the training program is Like, let's dent the customer, and that's how they'll learn. I'm kidding away, but you never want to have your training program so that they're learning by fire. Like, okay, well, yeah, you don't do that. You don't not order the kitchen, or you don't do this. And now we're in a spot like the customers aren't happy. A lot of people want to throw them in early, and that's not a good thing because sometimes they don't understand the systems you're using, they don't understand the processes, and they need to get to a point so that they can provide that first customer an excellent experience. And that doesn't always happen. That just means like get in the game, play. You're going to make a lot of mistakes with this customer, and then we'll go back and we'll tell you what they are. Not a good plan. Maybe we can like educate them around being able to provide that customer what you've set out to do, which is an excellent experience because they've been trained in the way you do business.
Right. And saying that as an employee, as a new employee, the experience that you're gaining from your company, it has a lot to do with it. So it comes from the top down. However you're treated as you're coming on board, that's setting up that culture, that's setting up that respect for yourself, for the company, and then that will tumble down into your customer as well.
Right. And one of the things about new people coming on board, they've transferred from another company, right? And so now they're trying to find out, okay, if this was the right move. And if you have a really solid training program in place and everybody is supporting them, and then that first customer is a really good experience because they help make it that, guess what they're going to do? They came from a place that has other designers, and they know other designers in the market. And they're going to be like, you know what, this is a great place to go. And if they're not, and it's more of it turns into a little bit chaotic on the first customer because they haven't been brought up to speed, the likelihood of them wanting to recommend other people to come on board is going to be fairly limited. So there's a lot of things that if you have a solid training program in place that are going to benefit not only your company, but your customers at the same time. So if we could just, David, wouldn't mind bringing up the next slide. I want to get into some of the meat and potatoes of this. So here is understanding your overall process. Now, obviously, you can tailor this to whatever your business is and how it works. But here we use an example where you can see it starts with the customer leads, gathering information, and you can see the rest of it goes all the way through punchwork billing and then the customer aftercare. And once you've decided which of these processes are part of yours and you've defined what those are, the next step is you want to get into what's called sub-processes. So if we can move into the next one, now you take each one of those processes and you break it down into the smaller processes that are encompassed in this one. So let me try to maybe be clear about this. So I know there's going to be a lot of questions. You can see in this one, in the sub-process map, we took customer aftercare. And if anybody would like this information about how this is set up, just email me or call me and I can provide it. And you might want to start this internally as a guideline and how you want to move forward. So you can see what this company did as far as their aftercare, handwritten notes, gifts after the job closes. I love the 30-day, 90-day, 1-year follow-ups. It may be part of a digital package that you've put together for customers and how you're going to stay connected to them. These people are like gold. I'm not going to get too far into how important customer aftercare is, but when we're talking to dealers and I'm like, what happens after the customer is done with you guys? They're like, well, not a lot. Or we send an annual email to them. I'm not just talking about like bombarding them every month. We want to make it fun and playful. But this is all the decisions that you can start making once you put up what's your aftercare program. If this sheet is blank, then you probably have some work on how you want to define that and how it's going to help keep that relation going with your customer. This actually forces you to do it. This comes in like, oh, you know what? We got a big block here that doesn't have any words. It doesn't have any processes. It doesn't have any gusto. And we need to pump it up a little bit because those customers are so important to us. That's the thought process that's going to start coming up as you're going through this and understanding it and outlining these processes. It's really cool to go through. And if you're a larger company, one of the things I'm going to encourage is don't just have the salespeople do it. Have everybody that's involved. If you have like customer service people, even accounting, everybody from every attribute, operations, if you have an installer, they all need to be part of defining the processes and the sub processes. Mary, why do you think that might be a great way to kind of set this whole thing up to begin with?
Well, you have to take into account everyone's point of view. They're all dealing with different parts of the process. So someone who's in accounting is probably not going to know, the contractors or the installer side of what they're doing. So you have to visit it from all sides and look at it from all the different points of view to make sure that you are not leaving something out or not maybe including something that maybe is in the wrong place in the process or something like that. So it's really important to have everyone's input, and also you need their buy-in when it comes down to it.
Yeah, they need to understand. They're on board. Right, exactly. They need to participate in this thing. So because everything that everybody does within that process typically affects somebody else in the process. And being able to bring in, like you said, excellent point, like all the perspective as you're going through this. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, oh, I didn't know that this, like, I fill this thing out sometimes. I didn't know how it impacted you as far as your job. And they're like, yeah, if I don't have that information or it doesn't include this, I'm like in a bad spot. And, how many times do you hear say, I didn't get all the information I needed to do my job, which happened earlier in the chain. This way, you can start talking about those things. Okay, well, we need to add that, right? And that now becomes the new process. And you might hear from other people in the company that are looking at your existing process and say, you know what you can do here? You don't have to go through all that. I don't need all that stuff. That's like from years ago. And why don't we just simplify it? Simplifying processes are the best way to do it. Sometimes these sub processes, you may see a list of 25 things. I'm like, whoa, how is someone going to train to that? I mean, you have to make them combine, and the word simplicity has to be the guiding star for all of this. Anytime you can make a process simple, and I know a lot of people think the big kitchen and bath industry has a lot of complexity, and it does. Your job is to simplify it. So everybody can understand it, everybody can follow it. If you put 100 steps to it, then you can go to train them and then train them, and then say, okay, let's go through the 100 steps. It'll be like, I don't know, 5?
Yeah.
So bring in mind if you can bear these things down into something that people can understand and they can like really get a good grasp of is really important.
It's what Santiago says with the acronym KISS, keep it stupid simple.
Yes, remember? Exactly. I always get that confused because I'm stupid, and that's the thing about it. Like, stupid is what now. Keep it simple, stupid. That is a huge point. Okay, so now we've defined the overall processes that you have, right? The next step was, again, breaking them down into sub-processes this is the summary of them. This is all the sub-processes that are in there. You've decided what they are, and you've redefined them, or you leave them like the way they are. You want to try to get some metrics to it. Okay, now that you have all that stuff in place, you can start your training program. If you've skipped this step, and you have 4 designers that have 4 different processes, I don't know how you're going to train the new employee. The other thing too is if you're all using consistent ones, then you can start using best practices, like combining what some people are doing and then coming down with the one way that it gets done. I've read Mary's done a lot of this research too on training. It's very interesting, some of the things that people are learning. There's a really good article that was in HBR or Business Review about training and the way it used to be done and how it's going to be done in the future. 'Cause I think a lot of us can agree. You go through a training class, like I've seen people go through a 1-day training class on products or whatever it is. Like, how much of that stuff can they retain? You're like, we put a lot of time and effort into this. Well, guess what? 2 weeks later, if they're lucky, they're going to retain maybe 20% of that information, more like 10%. So trying to take on all that information at one time is a complete overload for that person. You know how people learn the best? Step by step, small bite by small bite. Come back and repeat. Small bite, small bite. It's all about the repetition of what you're doing. That is the key to training and the knowledge. So this is Mary's baby. So I'm gonna kind of let her take over the training part of it. I'll go and outline. This thing is huge. I hope that people are watching are going to stay on here because it's going to be extremely important to your success in the future. Getting your people up to speed. What do you remember the quote that you were telling me about yesterday, Mary? About that company down in Southern Virginia? I do.
No, I don't remember. What did I tell you?
So this guy does an amazing amount of training with his people, right? And he puts a lot of effort, he put a lot of resources, and his turnover is very limited. Like they love that they're getting up to speed and they can do their job right because they've been trained really well. And so someone asked the guy, he said, so what if you put all this time and effort into training that person and then they leave? Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, let me ask you this question. What if I don't spend all this training and resource to get them up to speed and they stay? Yeah. I was like, okay, I want someone to stay that's not trained. And it just clicked like that. It made all the sense in the world. So great. This is like everything's about ROI, like for marketing or whatever. You better put your ROI in training. That means you're going to put a lot of resources into it, but it's going to pay huge dividends on the backside. Yeah. So Mary, please, sorry for the trick question there, but we're all good. The platform is yours.
I actually read that article too, but the 4 steps that are on the slide were tell them, show them, watch them, and follow up. So those are the 4 basic steps in training someone on something. So telling them, just explain what you're doing and why. They need to understand the why. So you tell them. And then the next step would be to show them how to do what you're doing. Then you need to watch them while they do it. However, watching them without any input, so just staying back and letting them do it on their own. Once they're able to complete the task 100% with no questions, no assistance, anything like that, that's when you know they're trained. If you're having to give them one little hint, they're not there yet. So you just keep working with them until they get to the point where they can do it 100% on their own. Most importantly, after that is the follow-up. You can't just leave them at that point. You got to keep checking in, making sure that they're still doing it correctly, that they're not leaving anything out. That article that Thad was just talking about, that owner has all these different things in place that he's checking in with his employees. I think he randomly selects 3 or 4 people every day that he does sort of a pop quiz on whatever job they're doing that day. And then the managers are all required to spend like 10% of their time teaching and training. One of the quotes in that article said that all leaders are teachers. So it's just a big part of their job to continue checking in, making sure that their team is doing what they're supposed to do, following the processes, and that they have the tools that they need to continually keep up with those processes correctly.
Yes. And to what you're saying, like when I talk to people about training programs, they're like, we're really busy. We don't have any time. It just goes back to what that guy says is, okay, so you're so busy, you can't get your people up to speed. And so whatever they're doing that they're just winging it on is going to be your brand. That's what's going to come out from this. And if you don't have time to like develop a good training program so your brand is solid and consistent with every customer, I don't know. That's kind of a stray strategy. I'd have to really look at and put into like a different committee here, mark some lines over here, draw this one over here, and then still come to the same conclusion. That's probably not the right way to go.
Well, and how about the money that's just going out the window with all the mistakes that are happening or the time that's wasted because you're not training them properly? So then they're making mistakes, and then you're going back to retrain them again, not properly. And it's just, it's cyclical, right? It just keeps happening.
I love, we used to have those double checks. And what that means, someone went through, put a second set of eyes on every order that's in there. I've got one of our branches when I worked at this other place. And I was like, I don't see any of the double checks in here so to make sure that every order was being checked off by somebody else. And their response was, we are too busy putting out fires right now to be able to fill those out. I was like, whoo, okay. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
And the stress, all the stress that's involved with dealing with all these problems, especially for new employees. Like, we have to take the time to put this program together so that they fully understand it. When they fully understand it, which is where you want to leave them, they should be able to train the next person. That's how well they should know. This person comes in, that one is, everybody said, oh yeah, bring the 5-year one in. Why? Because they know it a lot better. In some circumstances, I understand that, but all the basic stuff, that newer employee should already be up to speed all the way through. You haven't stopped the training, it never stops, but they need to know it so well it's ingrained in them. Then you're going to see them really have a lot of success. You're see them blossom because they know what they need to do there, and they're going to be happy there, and your customers are going to be happy. It all comes down to taking time, map out your processes, your sub processes, and then train to them.
Yep.
So, hey, if we got questions here, we're taking them. Now, earlier, I was like, no questions now, no questions. That was during the press conference earlier. And, how those things run, it's like, well, what are you doing with your career? Where are you going? Okay, I'm just kidding. There was no press conference. But if you do have questions, please send them in. Mary's like, I need to start looking for another job. I want to go.
You never trained me for this, then.
I know. I'm going to talk about this. I'm like, Mary, here's your job. Go. Nah, we spent hours on it. So
hours.
Yep. Okay, David, if you could bring up the next slide, we're going to start hitting on some of the other things. I think we spent enough time on the first one. We are going to get into training methods, which we talked about or touched on a little bit earlier. One thing that people are finding is that they have a limited amount of attention. Like, there's so much wealth of information that has caused a poverty in attention. I read that. I didn't make it up. And so when you're considering doing a 4, 6, 8-hour training class, you really need to have a solid backside of follow-up if they're actually going to learn those things. I encourage people, get them into a 1 hour, half hour, 1 hour, 2 hour training that they can have their attention there. that they're fully listening and engaged. And to what we showed earlier, there's different ways where you can do a lecture. You can do the next thing, which is well, showing them how to do it or having them do it. And the engagement side of it is some really cool things that are coming out with augmented reality where people are going in and they are having the opportunity to learn by being in that environment and doing it. What an amazing increase in their retention of what they're doing. I think we all know that. How many times have we sat in a lecture and we're all kind of like, okay, after a couple hours, or doodle or thinking about all the stuff we need to get done. You can look around the room, everybody's like looking at their clock. I got so much stuff to do. And they kind of shut down, right? That lecture stuff does not work anymore. It works to the point if you want them to retain about 10% of what you're saying, perfect. If you want to get them more, you got to start with engagement. Every one of your training classes, you need to start asking questions and listening to the responses of how does this work? How does that work? So they're part of it. Boy, you want to talk about somebody who's fully engaged in something. When other people are around and someone asks a question that they're just going through the training, the last thing they want to do is say, I have no idea. They're saying, I think it's this, and then everybody else in the room is paying attention because if they get called on, they want to be able to provide that answer too. So you do big rooms, that's somewhat effective. Big groups that are out there, they can learn the basics, but boy, if there's no follow up to it, it's probably going to fall short. You can see the retention rates here when that happens. You do want flexibility because there's a lot of training classes that can be done online, but having someone just watch something for an hour and then thinking they're up to speed is probably not the best idea. They need to have someone follow up with them to start asking questions about what they learned and how it applies to their job. I'm talking a lot, so Mayor, why don't you get a little bit more into the training methods? She's been studying this for the last month, and just wanted to hear some feedback from her.
Yeah, I mean, everything that is saying is right on the money. Anytime that you're able to learn by doing, you're going to retain it so much better. Anyone is. It's just it gets into your system, it gets into your muscle memory, and you can retain it that way. And that goes back to the tell them, show them, watch them. So the watch them part is key, so that they're actually doing it on their own. And that is big part, that augmented reality that you're talking about will be key coming up, I think. In the very near future, I think that'll be start getting used a lot, just simply for that aspect. But that being said, I think that a lot of places will use a combination of these for training their employees. You don't have to use just one, obviously, but you can make a great program by, doing some of them online on their own, doing some video work or some videos with maybe a pop quiz at the end of that to make sure that you retain it, and then following and working with employees that are currently there, certain designers, going out on a sales call or whatever, and then the interactive as well. So putting a really good combination of those things together is probably going to be the winning situation, the winning method.
Right. And I know, look, I understand how difficult it is right now. There's a lot of supply chain issues. There is a record number of sales going on that don't seem to be slowing at all. So everybody's trying to deal with all these things. And sometimes when someone needs training, the easiest thing to do that doesn't take you a lot of time is watch this video or read this. That'll get you up to speed. And you could do that in some cases. But if you're not going to invest the time to follow up and talk to them and see what they've learned, understanding the processes and stuff, you know what you're going to be busy with next? Either finding another employee because that one left, or dealing with all the issues that employee has created because no one took the time to train them in the first place.
Yeah.
There's a real void there. That's why we wanted to talk about this today. And we're trying to like give you sit down, set the time aside, get it on the calendar. Santiago will tell you if it's not on the calendar, it does not exist.
Doesn't exist.
And anybody who says we're going to get to it when things slow down, I want to know when you slow down. That could be years from now. It doesn't come. Don't think it's automatically going to appear one day and go, wow, I just found 40 hours this week that's open. No, sir.
Yeah.
You got.
I think you also have to remember. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Nope, I was done.
I was just going to say that in the follow-up, the engagement aspect is so important, because if you're just following up and saying, "Hey, are you doing this?" That's not really a follow-up.
What are they going to say?
Right.
Yeah. Say, yeah, sir.
Sure, yeah.
I got all of it. I understand all of it. Okay, we're good here.
Exactly. But if like that article that we were talking about earlier, the way that he follows up, or the way that his system and process is to follow up, is fun for the employees, and they know it's coming, so they know they have to know, so they just are prepared for it. And every day they go into work, they don't know, are they going to be the ones that are put on the spot? And the other thing is, what he said is that if they don't know, then they go, oh, we got to get you trained on this again, and they pop them back into some training to make sure that they know that part of the job. So it's not like anything to put someone on the spot and embarrass them. It's to make sure that everything's running like a well-oiled machine, which is what everybody wants. The owners want it. The employees want it too. They want it. They want to know what they're doing.
Right. How many employees want to work around other employees that don't know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you heard like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that knows here, and it makes a difficult environment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and post that article out on our website, and then we'll put some links to it. It's a great article.
It really is. Really is a good article.
If you're coming on here because you need to put a training program together, or your training program is kind of, sketchy, let's say, now's the time to start doing it. I'm going to put this article out there. If there's other things that you need from us, we're here for support. We want to help dealers grow and build better businesses. Training is a huge part of that. So feel free to email or whatever, Mary or myself. I am going to get that article out there on the website here shortly, so you can go ahead and read it. If you have any questions like, hey, Thad, Mary, where do I start? I mean, it makes sense. I'm almost embarrassed by the fact that we don't have any training program. We had one before. I look at it now, it's so outdated. It's not that effective. We have new people coming on. I want to be able to show them when we're recruiting people, show them a piece of paper or whatever it is. Here's our 90-day onboarding. And then this is our ongoing training. And I think that employee is going to go, woohoo, hallelujah. Oh, yeah. I found a place in the kitchen bath industry that has a really tight and good training program. Look, that's no slight. I know a lot of people that do, but I think a majority of them are struggling on the training side. It's really hit or miss, and they're just hoping that they hire someone really, really good. And that's not how we do talent acquisition. They're like, look, this is what I need. Someone who's been in the industry for a long time, someone who knows everything, will have all the skill sets, and they don't want to be paid very much. That's why, can you hire someone like that for me? Like, seriously? Have you ever thought about bringing people on that aren't fully up to speed, and then you can get them there? That is a much more likely scenario.
One of the quotes in that article, it said, hire for attitude, train for skill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that goes right back to your core values, because you get that training system in there, you get the right people on board, your culture is just going to form on its own. It's going to form to that.
Yeah, let's talk about the positive sides. Like what the vision is, having a great team that's fully trained. Like, you have solid processes and systems in place. You talk about scaling up and being able to grow and take market share and have a lot of employees that are really happy. I mean, There's so much upside to this, but it takes time to invest in it too. And I'm trying to give Mary and me are like giving the kick, the punt. Like the time is now, and we're here to help. I don't want to sound like some infomercial or anything because we're not selling anything, but I just really, it's great for your people. It's great for you. If you could take this first step and don't start the process and then get busy and it falls into a drawer. Companies, the separator between companies is their ability to execute, right? Everybody can write out a plan. You can take, whoever's playing football and say, here's our plan. That's great. It's got a lot of good plays in there. But if you don't know how to execute those plays, it doesn't make any difference. Setting the plan is the easier part. Executing is much, much harder. And that is a huge separator from the people, the have-nots and the nots, which we see more and more of, that could drive their success. They're going to see their ability to grow and provide great service for customers. They will also have better partnerships with their suppliers because they're all going to see this is the top level. This is the cream of the crop type of organization that has a training program in place, gets people up to speed. Word of mouth gets out there. That's not why you do it. You do it for the right reason, but it's going to have a lot of great benefits for your company too. David, anybody I don't know, maybe we did such a thorough job of talking about this that we don't have any questions. Okay, so Mary, why don't you make up a question from the audience? Oh, wait. I have Trudy from Ontario that's on the phone. Trudy, what's your question? Well, Thad, first of all, this has been one of your best seminars. I follow you everywhere. You sound a little bizarre, Trudy, but I'm going to keep talking to you. What's your question? We have a good team, but we know we need to train better in the future. Can you give us some guidelines on how we can get there? Absolutely, Trudy. So glad you reached out to us. You can personally email me. I just will provide any tools that you have, but you have to get your systems outlined first. You have to understand how your business operates. In the process, you can improve those processes, Trudy, once you've laid those things out. And if you see some holes, let's start adding them into the training program. Don't do a training program from the top up. You have to engage everybody in the organization that takes part in the overall process of serving that customer. I'm sorry, what else did you say, Trudy? I just don't seem to find the time because it's so busy up here in Ontario with dealing with the snow, the supply chain issues, and selling a lot at the same time. Where can I find the time to do this? Trudy, I have a lot of empathy for you in a number of different reasons. I think you need to get it on your calendar. Period. End of story. I can keep talking about it, but if you don't get dates on your calendar like now, just to invite the people you need to have as part of your team to say, we're going to start step one. And here's all the steps that we're going to go to building a phenomenal training program. Santiago loves that word. Phenomenal training program. Yeah. It starts with you, right? They just have to do it. Oh, Trudy, thanks so much for the call in. We love to have participation from the group. We wish you the best of luck, and feel free to reach out to us. Mary, is there anything else? We're right at 45 minutes. We're trying to keep this thing to 45 minutes because those people are busy. But are there some other things that you would like to add to the discussion before we close down?
I just want to say that I think that everyone out there can see from the last 2 minutes of this that the days here are never boring. Never. Thad keeps it exciting and interesting, and I never know what to expect when I come in. But he is correct in saying that it starts with you. Make a plan, put it on the calendar, get people psyched about it, and follow it through. Just do it.
Start, right? Start.
Got to
So
start
we
somewhere.
have another caller coming in, and this one is not Trudy. So
Oh,
we will answer that question. David, if you
okay.
could put it up on the screen, I'm so glad someone else has reached out. Oh, it's a question of are you insane? Well, the answer to that is very complex.
100% yes.
Yes, everybody around here
At
will
least
say that.
50%, at least 50% of us on this podcast today are insane. I won't say
That's good.
which have.
Yep. Don't live in the past. Look, I can't tell you guys more about what's coming down the pipeline, the huge opportunities that you have to continue to grow, to be one of those companies that we consider the haves. One of those things in the have company is a great training program, great system, great culture. This is going to lead to huge success. I know people get worried. Look, this is insurance. This is insurance for your success. You're investing in that earned insurance to make sure that you can grow, and you're going to grow in the right way, and you're going to grow with the right people. That's a kind of a summary of it. I can say it over and over again. The one thing that baffles me when we go through these is like I really liked it. It was the best seminar that I've ever seen in my life. And then obviously I'm kidding, but they don't take the next step. And that's unfortunate. You've invested the time to watch this. You've given some ideas of how you can start. When you are finished with this and you turn off this, go to your calendar, send an email out to the people who are going to be involved, and get it on your calendar. Even if the first meeting is 1 hour, make the time for it. Outline what you're going to do and stick to the plan. We get in Traction, which is Santiago, the way we do the process methodologies is you have to start with that first step, develop a plan of what you want to do, and get it done in 90 days. Set a time frame on it. If you're building a training program that's going to take a year to build, you're never going to get it done. This is going to end up taking 2 years, 3 years. Make it important, put it on the priority list, and get it done. Mary, I think we are good to go. Is there any other last comments that you would like to add?
Just we've got some podcasts coming up. The next one is March 24th at noon, and that's going to be about technology. And then the following month in April on the 21st, scorecards. So we'll be sending out some emails to remind you about that, but you can always pop onto our website at kbglobalpartners.com and register for upcoming events.
Yeah, and scorecards, you can't measure things if you don't have processes in place to measure.
Right.
So, and if you don't have measurements, you're flying blind, like, oh, which way do we go? And that's something Trudy taught me. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you found it entertaining and also information that was good, that's going to be helpful in building your training program. We're here to support you, and we hope you can join future ones. Reach out to if you need anything. I hope you have a great day, and just enjoy life. Be nice to each other. Be nice to yourself. Have fun, and have a lot of success too. So thanks you again so much, Mary. I want to thank you for joining us. You filled in for John Morgan. You know, John has something to say whether you're worthy in filling his shoes. He's an institution in our industry, but I think you did a stand-up job.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much again. You guys have a great day, and we look forward to connecting to you in the near future. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.